It's a massive story from the New York Times. Biden says he made the clemency decisions that were recorded by AutoPen. That's the headline, at least. What's the actual story? When you actually read it, they say Biden did not individually authorize. Wow. So the headline is different from what's actually happening because what the New York Times is doing is opining. They're offering up their opinion on what something means. Well, I too, my friends, would engage similarly. That is, despite the headline saying Biden did make the decisions, the story is that Joe Biden basically had criteria for pardons that his staff were familiar with, and then his staff went and ultimately made the decisions to pardon. With one scenario where people are claiming that Fauci ran in the last minute being like, pardon me, don't miss me. The Trump admin has maintained these pardons are void. Rand Paul is now saying, I am reissuing my criminal referral for Dr. Fauci. Because as we all knew, Joe Biden had nothing to do with these pardons. Now, here's what I think happened. Quick little opinion. I think that Biden's staffers used the AutoPen. It's a robot. You stick a pen into a little arm and then it signs the name to issue pardons for themselves, their friends, obviously his family. And I don't think Joe was aware at all. Then when the Republicans began investigating, Joe Biden simply states retroactively, no, I said it was fine. But here's a question. If Joe Biden did not explicitly order these pardons, are they legitimate? I would make the argument, in fact, no. I think these pardons are voided, and they are testing the bounds of what is legal. Now, this is a massive story from the New York Times where they're basically trying to argue that Biden did authorize these. That's the headline. But the reality is they say in the story it was a generality and other people did it. So here's a question for the law. Can a president give vibes? Maybe I'm being a little too facetious. Can he give a general criteria for a broad and wide range of actions that other people then take out? That is, if Joe Biden says, they say, Mr. President, we have a list of people to kill. And he goes, well, we're looking to kill whoever, so kill whoever you want. Who is ultimately responsible for this? That's the question. I will put it like this. The extrajudicial assassination of Abdulrahman al-Awlaki carried out by the Obama administration, for which Joe Biden was VP. The argument they made is that Obama just signed off on the intel he received, and they accidentally targeted this place. You can't blame Obama for it. He didn't mean to do it. Okay. Well, then I don't hold the same legal authority for Joe Biden's blanket pardon whoever you want strategy. If the president isn't signing off on it, his aides don't have that authority. So this is wild. Now, before we get into that story, my friends, we got a great sponsor. It is AmericanFinancing.net/Tim. My friends, what if you could delay your next 2 mortgage payments? That's right. Imagine putting those 2 payments in your pocket and finally getting a little breathing room. It's possible when you call American Financing today. If you're feeling stretched by everyday expenses, groceries, gas bills piling up, you're not alone. Most Americans are putting these expenses on credit cards, and there doesn't seem to be a way out. American Financing can show you how to use your home's equity to pay off that debt. You need to call American Financing today before you get to a point where you can't make those payments. Their salary-based mortgage consultants are helping homeowners just like you restructure their loans and consolidate debt, all without upfront fees. And their customers are saving an average of $800 per month. That's like a $10,000 raise. It's fast, it's simple, and it could save your budget this summer. Call now before it's too late. 866-890-7811. That's 866-890-7811, or visit AmericanFinancing.net/Tim. And my friends, we've got a big announcement. Take a look at this lineup for July 26th. There may still be, I said it before, for our live events at the DC Comedy Loft. Get your tickets, link in the description. I said we're working on some big names. We are still currently in talks with a final person to join us, which if we do, I think it'll be just absolutely nuts. But for the time being, we said, let's roll. We got Matan. You guys know this dude? He's funny. A lot of people are saying he's going to ruin everything. I think he'll make it great. And Gavin McInnes will be joining us to discuss, is Trump still winning? The idea with the Epstein files, with Trump's staff reported, we've got 2/3 of Trump's legal apparatus apparently quitting. These are the lawyers that they use to defend Trump's policies. There's a question around how much good is being done and will it be sustained? But where's that liberal personality, you say? We got our fingers crossed. So check out dccomedyloft.com, July 26th. Link is in the description below. Additionally, Michael Malice, Angry Cops, August 2nd, and our August 9th event to be determined. Again, we got a bunch of big names. A lot of people are interested in jumping up on stage and having these conversations. So don't forget to also smash that like button, share the show. Let's dive into this story from the New York Times, which is, by the way, massive. But let's analyze and break this down. They reported it. They reported it, right? The New York Times says Biden says he made the clemency decisions that were recorded with AutoPen. Trump and his allies have begun investigations to support their claims that Joseph Biden was incapacitated and his staff conspired to take presidential actions in his name. You know what? I will concede all of it, walk away, and just say, thanks for this, New York Times. You've basically pointed out that, in fact, Joe Biden did not authorize the individual pardons. Former President Biden is escalating his battle against Republican claims that he might not have been in control of his high-profile clemency decisions issued under his name at the end of his term, and more generally, that his cognitive state impaired his functioning in office. In an interview with the New York Times, Mr. Biden said that he had orally granted all the pardons and commutations issued at the end of his term, calling President Trump and other Republicans liars for claiming his aides had used an AutoPen to do so without his authorization. Oh, man, you're just going to love it when you get to the bottom of the story. This is what they do. They front load the lies and then admit it in the back so you can't sue them. I made every decision, Mr. Biden said in a phone interview on Thursday, asserting that he had his staff use an AutoPen replicating his signature on the clemency warrants because we're talking about a whole lot of people. What, your family? It was like, what, 5 or 6 people? Insane. The interview was Mr. Biden's first about the parallel investigation. The parallel investigation is begun by the Trump White House, the DOJ, and Congress into a series of clemency decisions by Mr. Biden in his final weeks in office and his mental acuity during his term. Republicans in Congress have demanded sworn interviews with former Biden aides, prompting them to hire their own lawyers. Some lawyers are said to have warned their clients not to talk publicly about the dangers of testifying because the Justice Department under Mr. Trump might be eager to bring perjury charges over any inconsistency, no matter how minor. Mr. Biden's former White House doctor, who has said his medical evaluations showed he was fit to serve, invoked the Fifth Amendment to avoid answering questions. I'm going to pause right now, and I'm going to tell you exactly what the New York Times is doing. They know that what they've uncovered actually corroborates Republican arguments. They are now front-loading the story, as I just described, but this is another example. We don't need to know about this. What we need to know about is as we scroll way down, and we'll come back, scroll way down, blah, blah, blah. Mr. Biden said in Thursday's interview that he had his staff use an AutoPen for the warrants because he had granted clemency to so many people. The AutoPen was used in all on 25 pardon and commutation warrants from last December to January. Some of the individual warrants included large batches of names because they all fell into the same broad policy category, like reducing the sentences of nonviolent drug offenders who met standards Mr. Biden established. Mr. Trump and his congressional allies are focused in particular on trying to delegitimize Mr. Biden's final batch of clemency actions. That set extended preemptive pardons to many people Mr. Trump perceived as enemies, including Mark Milley, Anthony Fauci, and members and staff of the House committee that investigated the Capitol riot. Mr. Trump had claimed on social media that the J6 committee pardons are invalid, asserting, without offering evidence. You see how they're doing this? This is what evil looks like. The phrase without offering evidence is a nonsense statement. We are not in a criminal trial. We are quite literally hearing the opinion of Mr. Trump, President Trump, as it were, that Mr. Biden did not know anything about them. Now, we'll keep scrolling. We'll keep scrolling. In the interview, Mr. Biden explained that he decided against community sentences of 3 death row inmates, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Now, this is just a lot of wordy, convoluted nonsense. And look how far down we have to go. Quote, Mr. Biden did not individually approve each name for the categorical pardons that applied to large numbers of people, he and aides confirmed. Full stop. Thank you and have a nice day. I'll close it now. They could have led with this story. Mr. Biden did not individually approve commutations and pardons confirmed. Instead, they say that he did. Even after Mr. Biden made the decision, one former aide, so let me finish that paragraph. Rather, after extensive discussion of different possible criteria, he signed off on the standards he wanted to be used to determine which convicts would qualify for a reduction in sentence. This is, of course, referring to the large amount of pardons he made, that basically it was auto pen. It was carried out by his aides who determined based on criteria, and Mr. Biden himself didn't individually approve of these things. In fact, it would appear, I think, not that one. Let me see if I can grab this video right here, that the only pardon he actually did was his son.
Looks different. It looks authentic. In fact, if you look at the last name, it almost looks like the president was having a hard time spelling his last name there.
Makes sense.
Is this White House of the opinion that the only pardon that would count is one that the president signed himself?
It's very interesting. Very interesting props. If you want to bring them to my office later so I can take a closer look, I would like to do that. The president is making a good point when he discusses the usage of the auto pen. Who was running the country for the past 4 years? Perhaps those documents were signed with the auto pen, something that this, I believe the Department of Justice is looking into. As you saw, Ed Martin made an announcement at the Department of Justice this morning to launch an investigation because the American people deserve answers.
Is there any concern that this president, who won the election on a promise to fix the economy and close the border, that focusing and scrutinizing these Biden pardons is looking into the past instead of looking forward? I
think in comparison to the amount of time this president has spent on securing the border, on fixing our economy, I just read out for you an entire list.
So we're good there, but I do believe this is from a while ago. I don't think this is from, I think this is looking back about a month ago. Different. Yeah, this is from June 3rd. So Ed Martin did announce they'd be investigating this, but I think it's absolutely fascinating. Let's go back now and read, because there's a lot to this story which is damning that they're not that they're not explaining. Mr. Biden said in Thursday interview, we read this part. That said, extended preemptive pardons to many people like Trump. We get that in a 10-minute interview, which the Times requested as part of its reporting. Mr. Biden said he shielded those people along with members of his family so they would not have to run up large legal bills from politically motivated investigations by the Trump Justice Department. Everybody knows how vindictive he is, so we knew that they'd do what they're doing now. I consciously made all those decisions. So let us just break this down, and I'll try and be as clear as I can. It appears, based on an investigation so far, both publicly and in Congress, in the Republican Congress, that Biden used auto pen on all but his son's pardon. Biden has admitted that he had a broad criteria for pardons and that they used auto pen because there were so many. He says he made the decision himself, particularly on these key individuals. There is a possibility, as it pertains to, say, Fauci or others, he may have explicitly stated their names. But from what I can gather from this story, they've not explicitly stated that. And it looks like they're jumbling up the reporting so that they make you draw conclusions without giving you the clear details. That is to say, they show that the use of auto pen was managed by Mr. Biden's White House staff. Secretary Ms. Feldman, she wanted to receive written accounts confirming Biden's oral instructions in the meetings before having it used to produce the warrants recording the clemency actions the emails show. The aides refer to those written accounts of meetings at which Mr. Biden delivered oral decisions as blurbs. The accounts were drafted by aides to senior advisors who had participated in the key meetings. The assistants who drafted the blurbs were not themselves in the room with Mr. Biden, according to the list of those meeting participants. The emails imply that Mr. Siskel and Mr. Zentz relayed what Mr. Biden had said to the assistants, who then documented. So once again, the New York Times is covering this story up. Let me lay it out for you. A handful of guys who claim to have been in a meeting with Mr. Biden, the president, told aides that he issued these orders, and the aides said, I have an email from him claiming the president said a thing. That is the criteria by which they're claiming they used a robot to sign pardons for everybody. So we can look at a couple different ways. It appears what they're saying as to the pardons issued. Joe Biden didn't actually issue the broad swath of these. He just said, pardon people like this. As it pertains to the key individuals, that is, say, Fauci and his family, not including his son, which it appears he did actually pardon his son. It may have been that a handful of people claimed he said it, and we don't know if he did, and it's only retroactively he's claiming, oh, yeah, sure, I did. So what do you do? What do you do? So they go down to say, the January 19th summary also showed that Mr. Biden made a late decision to pardon Ernest W. Cromartie II, a former councilman in Columbia, SC, who had pleaded guilty to tax evasion. Biden started the day in South Carolina attending a church service with a close political ally, Rep. James Clyburn, whose former aides say lobbied him afterwards to help Mr. Cromartie. In the interview, Mr. Biden acknowledged that that's what happened. I agree with Jim and I pardoned him. Expanding investigations. The emails show that an aide to Mr. Siskel sent a draft summary to Mr. Biden's decision, a draft summary of his decision, at the meeting to assistant Mr. Zentz, copying Siskel at 10:03 p.m. The assistant forwarded it to Mr. Reed and Mr. Zentz, asking for their approval, and sent their final version to Ms. Feldman, copying many meeting participants and aides at 10:28. 3 minutes later, Mr. Zentz hit reply all and wrote, I approve the use of the auto pen for the execution of all the following pardons. Who's Mr. Zentz? Is he the president? I guess so. This spring, Ed Martin, a Trump loyalist, who was then the interim U.S. attorney for D.C., sent letters to Mr. Biden's former aides asking for more information about Biden's role in the pardon decisions. Mr. Martin's nomination for that role later collapsed in the Senate, and he has since become the DOJ's pardon attorney. Funny, huh? The Trump admin's scrutiny of the use of AutoPen intensified last month when Trump signed an order on June 4th directing his White House counsel and Attorney General to investigate Mr. Biden's mental acuity and whether Mr. Biden's aides had illegally used the device. I will argue, I do not believe that Joe Biden retroactively claiming that he approves of these makes it legally done. And it appears by all of the evidence that Joe Biden was not aware of who was being pardoned and that these people were getting orders from people who weren't the president. Notably, the assistants who drafted these and used the auto pen received the orders from Mr. Zentz simply because he said, oh, yeah, sure, Biden says so. I think the order has to come from the president, and I believe the president should have to sign it. So I'll put it like this. If it is true that because a random aide told other staffers to issue pardons, they did, and that's the strength of the pardon machine in this country, we have no executive branch. If this stands legally, they are saying in all future instances, anyone who just turns the robot on can pardon whoever they want, quite literally saying any random person who happens to be in that building at the time working there can issue pardons to whoever they want, and they stand. Yeah, nah, I ain't buying that. I certainly ain't buying that. They say the executive branch investigation that led to the Trump administration request for all emails and clemency issues from the Biden White House near the end of his term. Under National Archive procedures, Mr. Biden could have raised objections but did not. At the same time, Rep. James Comer, Republican from Kentucky and chairman of the House, Senator Ron Johnson, have begun their own investigations into whether Biden and his aides concealed mental deficiencies that made him unable to perform presidential duties. To assist with those inquiries, the Trump White House preemptively issued a waiver saying Mr. Biden could not invoke executive privileges to shield his White House internal information from Congress. I love this because the argument was always that executive privilege was of the administration. The Biden admin argued against this after Trump's first term, saying, nope, all records of the executive branch are under the control of the current administration, regardless of who it is. Meaning, Trump can now say, no one from the Biden administration gets executive privilege, which they basically did. The double-edged sword the Democrats tried to wield, and now here it is. Many of Mr. Biden's aides and allies dismiss the investigation as baseless, as they see them as part of Mr. Trump's wide-ranging retribution campaign against people and institutions he does not like. But the investigations have entangled a sprawling group of former Biden admin officials, and they have enlisted a flight of white shoe lawyers from around Washington. The firms, some of which are performing the work at no cost. Why is that? Include Latham and Watkins, Covington and Burling, Cooley and Steptoe, according to people familiar with the matter. These lawyers, out of the goodness of their own heart, are just seeking to defend what the Democratic administration was doing. I'm sure. They're going to mention the first testifier was Neera Tanden. We're skipping a lot, by the way, talking about subpoenas, who served as staff secretary for part of Mr. Biden's presidency and as domestic policy advisor at the end of his administration. She sat for an interview last month. Ashley Williams, an aide to the president, participated in an interview on Friday, and the interviews are scheduled to continue into September. In the Senate, Mr. Johnson's committee has requested interviews with the cabinet officials, and Tom Vilsack, the former agricultural secretary, has already appeared for an interview. Mr. Biden himself, drumroll please, has hired a new personal lawyer, Amy Jeffress of Hecker Fink. He had been without one since he and his former personal lawyer, Bob Bauer, quietly parted ways months earlier, according to people familiar with the matter. Ms. Jeffress and Mr. Bauer declined to comment. Mr. Bauer's relationship with Mr. Biden significantly cooled over the last years of his presidency, in part because of an extended clash with Mr. Biden's son, Hunter, and his defense team over the political risks to the president created by aggressive public relations tactics they used in defending against congressional inquiries. Mr. Biden granted Hunter Biden a full pardon in December of 24. It was the only clemency warrant in that period that Mr. Biden signed with his own hand. And I would argue the last sentence of the article should be the headline. Only one pardon was signed by Biden, Hunter, period, case closed. Thank you and have a nice day. And then when you add all the rest, it should have opened with this statement. That should be the opening sentence. The only clemency warranted in the period that was signed by hand by Joe Biden was Hunter Biden. The next paragraph should be Biden's aides received instruction from other individuals, notably this Mr. Zients, that Biden had made a claim about issuing pardons to other people. That should have been the story. Corroborating. Let me see if I can find, I don't know if it's going to do Jan 6. Looks like it's going to do Jan 6. Preemptive pardons. The January 6th committee pardons. Here's what I think. I think prominent Democrat individuals were directing aides, and all they had to do was say, yeah, Biden says so. And the aides were like, we ain't questioning that. But as we can see here, the Biden admin and Biden himself have admitted that the majority of the pardons, and I don't believe they're saying the principal ones like Fauci, were based on criteria. I think it's also fair to argue one could interpret it as such. I don't believe Joe Biden came down and said, so we want my wife, my brother, let's do Mark Milley, let's do Fauci. Who else on the J6 committee? Let's do everybody in the J6 committee. I don't think Biden did that. I think Biden probably said, hey, look, just issue pardons. I'm sorry. In the event it's true that Biden did give these orders, Biden probably said, just give out pardons to people you think Trump might go after. If that is the case, and that is the argument they're making, then the pardons are void. They're void. He didn't issue them. He said, just pardon certain people of certain criteria. Okay, now here's the next step in the legal challenge. Joe Biden must produce the criteria by which he made these claims. Is it legal criteria for a president to say, pardon someone who may face criminal charges later? It may be. The question is, if Joe Biden says the criteria is people who had nonviolent offenses, right, for the broad swath, prove that was the order, and then we'll have to review to make sure everybody is in it. You know why? If the argument is Joe Biden made an order to staff, and those staffers, because it went down the chain, decided to put people in there who don't qualify, you see, that's the problem with issuing pardons to people by autopen, and the president hasn't named them. Let me say it again. If Joe Biden says, pardon anybody whose first name starts with the letter B, right? Just a hypothetical. Because he can apparently do that, I guess. We have to go through and make sure that every pardon aligns with the criteria ordered. We don't have to blindly trust that some staffer aide using an auto pen got it right. If Joe Biden wrote it himself, This man is pardoned, signed. Boom. Like he did with his son. Then it's clear Joe Biden signed the pardon for his son and his order was carried out. But if Joe Biden gave a blanket assertion to this Zients guy, the Zients guy then just told some other staffers, hey, Biden said something like this. We now have 2 degrees of separation in which the order may have been confused. So we're going to need that official statement from Joe Biden because that right there is it. So as for Fauci and these other individuals, we've got this from Rand Paul. Today, I will reissue my criminal referral of Anthony Fauci to the Trump DOJ. Well, how do we know that Fauci was actually part of any of that criteria? Is it possible that staffers just added those names? They say, and this is from the article too, again, because they buried everything. Check this out. At the January 19th meeting, which took place in the Yellow Oval Room of the White House, Mr. Biden kept his aides until nearly 10 p.m. to talk through such decisions, according to people familiar with the matter. The emails show that an aide to Mr. Siskel sent a draft summary of Mr. Biden's decisions at that meeting to an assistant to Mr. Zients, copying Mr. Siskel. At 10:03, the assistant forwarded it to Mr. Reed and Mr. Zients, asking for their approval, and then sent a final version to Ms. Feldman, copying many meeting participants and aides. 3 minutes later, Mr. Zients hit reply all, saying, I approve. Who is this guy to approve anything? If this is true, okay, and we are talking about the pardons of Fauci, then Biden never in these emails and in this story said, I approve of the use of AutoPen. It was some random guy, in which case the pardons are void. But here's a challenge for Trump. This is a big story from the other day. 2/3 of the DOJ unit defending Trump policies in court have quit. So we're doing this event, DC Comedy Loft, in less than 2 weeks. Not this weekend, but the next. Do you want to come and sit on stage and debate or just participate? DCComedyLoft.com, link in the description below. This is basically what we'll be discussing. It's not just the Epstein files. It's also stories like this. Obstruction. We've got sentiment. You've got public approval. Is Trump still winning? I'd make the argument, yes, he is. Setbacks don't mean you're losing. But that's the conversation we'll ultimately have. Now, we do have a big name, a big liberal, that we're hoping comes, but it's always tough. It's always tough to book the big liberals. But if we can get the liberal on and we can have this debate, it will be tremendous. So we're going to have those conversations, my friends. We're going to be joined in just a moment. I'll make sure we got everything set up and everything's good to go by Kyle Seraphin, former FBI. I got a question about this Epstein case, and maybe he has some insights for us, but also his opinions and thoughts on the current state of the Trump administration and where we're going, especially with these pardons. So smash that like button. Share the show with everyone you know at 4 p.m. for those watching this pre-recorded segment. Rumble.com/TimPool and YouTube.com/Timcast. We will have that that interview up for all of you. For everyone else, follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. Stay tuned. Thanks for hanging out. And we will see you all in the next segment or at 8 p.m. tonight on Timcast IRL.